It's got the looks, that's for sure, and it's under $200 US. You could say that's a steal for titanium, but is it an homage worthy of 007? Could this be your start to being an international man of mystery? This Heimdallr Sea Ghost is Bond on a budget. At the time of this video, you can find this watch on AliExpress at the Heimdallr official watch store for $197 US. Now there's a few different color dials and strap options going on, but they all seem to be in that $180 to $200 price range. If you decide you're interested, I will leave an affiliate link down below. And if you use it, you will not be charged anything extra, but I do get a small percentage of the sale to help out with the channel. Hello my friends, and welcome back to Eric's Everyday Watches. Today we're looking at the Heimdallr Sea Ghost. Now this is an homage watch worn by a very popular secret agent. And based on the comments that I've seen online, a lot of people like this watch. But I'm going to tell you now, early in the video, I am not one of those people. Now there are actually numerous things that I dislike about this watch. You know, little things like the crystal, the bezel, and the bracelet. But I also understand that the issues that I have might not be a deal breaker for everyone. And I think there are features about this watch that some people might enjoy, which are simply not for me. The big question here is whether or not this is possibly something that's for you. I mean, after all, that is why we're here. So let's take a closer look and you can decide for yourself. Hey everyone, if you're liking these videos, please do me a favor and consider subscribing. It would really help out the channel. Now let's get on with the review. The case construction on the watch is titanium, not stainless steel, as you might have been expecting. For measurements, we have a diameter of 42 millimeters, not including the crown guards. If you include those crown guards, we're looking at 43.5 millimeters. On the side, we have a lug-to-lug distance of 48.5 millimeters and an overall thickness of 13.5 millimeters. As you can see on my 7-inch wrist, it wears just fine. That 48.5 millimeter lug-to-lug distance gives me plenty of room to spare. On the case, we have a brushed finish throughout, which appears very uniform and nicely done. The titanium case is a slightly darker color than the more traditional stainless steel, and that always seems to be the case when talking about titanium watches. Now the shape of the case is very similar to the watch that this is homaging. The side of the watch has these scalloped edge, and there's a line which flows from the side of the watch to the top of the lugs. You can see on the side, the bezel also has a scalloped edge to it, which ties this whole thing together. It is a good looking case. All the edges on the top of the case are smooth to the touch. The edge on the bottom of the case is not quite as smooth, but it's important to keep in mind that we are talking about a $200 homage, not the $10,000 original. Now normally I would keep my personal opinions until the end of the video, but today I am going to point them out as we go along, and you can decide for yourself whether or not you agree with me. Now I think one of the key features that people are responding to when it comes to this watch is the fact that it's made from titanium. Personally, this is not a pro or a con for me. I am really indifferent about it. Sure, it's a lighter material, but given the fact that we're not looking at a traditional metal bracelet here, I'm not sure how much of a difference that lighter material is really making. Secondly, if you watched my channel before, you know I value original designs over homage watches. Now, that's just my personal preference. If homage watches are your thing, great, go for it, more power to you. In fact, I'm kind of envious. This is a fantastic time to be an affordable watch collector who is into homage watches. If we turn the watch over, on the back we have a screw-down case back. Now, as I mentioned before, the edges on the back, they are sharper than the edges on the top. But it's really this inside of the lugs where I feel it the most. Not an area I would normally give much attention to, so maybe it doesn't matter that much. Now on that case back, we have the Heimdallr logo and shark etched into the center. And around the outside, we have text that includes automatic movement, sapphire crystal, 200 meters, 660 feet, as well as 100% titanium. And that brings up something interesting. This newer version 2 of the watch uses a stainless steel crown, not a titanium crown like the version 1 did. Apparently, they had some issues with the original titanium crown, so they switched it to a stainless steel on this version. Inside that case, we have the Seiko Automatic Movement NH35. As you know, this is one of the world's most popular automatic movements. It is found in a lot of budget watches because it is dependable and affordable. Now, this movement has 24 joules, beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It has a 41-hour power reserve, it does hack, and it does hand wind. It is also rated with an accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day. Now, in my personal experience, this particular watch is running about 1 second slow per day, according to my watch app. Now, personally, I have nothing against the NH35 movement. I think it is a great choice for any budget-friendly watch. I have Seikos in my collection that are well over 15 years old and have never been serviced, and they are working just fine. For a watch under $200, this is my preferred movement. At the 3 o'clock position, we have an unsigned crown. Now the crown itself is roughly 6.5 millimeters in width and 4.5 millimeters in depth. There is a knurling pattern on it, making it easy to grip and to pull out. There's also a nice audible and tactile pop when you pull out the crown. Now this is a screw down crown, so you do need to unscrew it before you can hand wind it. Pulling it out to the first position and rotating it sets a date. Pulling it out to the second position hacks the second hand and sets a time. There is also a second crown located at the 10 o'clock position. Now, on the watch that this is homaging, this would be a helium escape valve. On this watch, I think of it more as decoration. And that's okay. I don't ever foresee needing a watch with a helium escape valve. But that's just me. Maybe your life is far more exciting than mine, and perhaps you're using a helium escape valve every week. I don't know. Moving on to the face of the watch, starting on the outside, we have a 120-click unidirectional bezel. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a scallop edge on this bezel, and that scallop edge does make it harder to grip and to turn. There's just not as much to grip onto. And personally, I don't like the way it sounds. This may be the difference between having a stainless steel bezel and a titanium one, but I just think it sounds clunky. Around the bezel, we have Arabic numbers counting in tens, with thin lines at the 5-minute marks and small dots for the individual minute markers. There is also a lume pip at the starting position. Now, all of this follows the design of the watch as this is homaging. Inside of the bezel, on the dial itself, we have a minute track printed directly on the dial. And inside of that, we have applied circular markers around the dial, except for the 3 and 9 o'clock position, where we have baton indices. And at the 12 o'clock position, we have doubled up side-by-side trapezoids. Now, I should point out that this dial is not a direct one-to-one homage. There are some differences here, including this 12 o'clock indice. Now, the color of all these indices are lighter than what's found on the bezel. To me, that is neither here nor there, but to some people, it may be a thing, so I point it out for you. Another difference between this and the original is instead of having another baton indice at the 6 o'clock position, this watch includes a date window. Overall, I think it's a good placement for a date window, in my opinion, and helps to keep the dial feel symmetrical. That date window is color matched to the dial with a small outline border treatment. And this is a nice attention to detail, as I think the white date window would have stuck out like a sore thumb. And further in, above that date window, we have text that reads Sea Ghost, automatic, and 200 meters. And on the top of the dial, on the other side of the center post, we find the Heimdallr shark logo. Moving on to the hands, that running second hand is nicely sized and meets up with the edge of the minute track. There is a loomed lollipop on the second hand, and on the far side of the second hand, the color changes to red, and that is the same as on the original watch. Now the minute and hour hand are something we need to talk about. The length of both of them is fine, and the hour hand is different enough that I can tell the time at a glance. My issue with the hands is that they are skeletonized and they are so thin on the sides that I did not realize there was loom there until I did this macro photography. Before that, I thought the only loom on the hands were at the very ends. And that is another thing we need to talk about, the loom. The loom on the end of the minute hand passes over the loomed indices. Now, I'm guessing on the original, maybe this is not an issue because the hands are thicker and you can see more of the loom on the hands. I'm not sure because it's not like I have an actual Omega Seamaster lying around the house that I can check. You can see here when the hand passes over the loomed indices, it is impossible to read the time because it just looks like another indice. On the website, the loom is listed as Japan C3. Not C3 Superluminova, just Japan C3. Take that for what you will. In my everyday testing, the loom here was not very bright. I could barely make out the loom on the indices, and I could not make out the loom on the hands at all. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the way that I test loom is I wear the watch, get an average amount of light exposed to it during the day, set it alongside my bedside table, and see if I can read the time at 4 in the morning. In the middle of the night, when my eyes are fully dilated, that is when I want to know if I can read the time. And this watch failed my test. For a crystal, this watch comes with a sapphire crystal with AR coating. Now, in my everyday experience, I found that this watch has a lot of reflections going on. Indoors, hey, it's 100% fine. But outdoors, it was just very distracting. And that brings us to the stainless steel Milanese bracelet. In case you didn't catch that, yeah, stainless steel, not titanium. At 20 millimeters wide at the lugs and tapers down to 18 millimeters at the sign clasp. At 2 millimeters thick, it feels substantial and not a cheap quality. There is good articulation here. Now, this is the same style of bracelet found on the original. It is comfortable to wear once you have it on. I personally just did not like it for these reasons. This bracelet has a clasp system which you need to feed the bracelet through first. Then you can figure out which adjustment hole works best for you. And then you can set the clasp to that position. After all that, you can slip your wrist through and close the clasp. In my everyday use, I found this just wasn't very practical. Oftentimes, when I removed the watch, the clasp would slip down to a different adjustment hole and I would not notice it until I went to put it on again. And then I would have to remove the watch, set the adjustment hole again, and put it back on. Other things I didn't like about the bracelet was the overall thickness of the clasp. At 9 millimeters thick, it has some heft to it. And lastly, the adjustment holes on a metal bracelet don't provide as good of a fit as a traditional metal bracelet with micro adjustments, or even a leather strap with adjustment holes. Because on a leather strap, there would be some give, some stretching when it wears in. But there's very little give with metal. In fact, there's none. There's none, really. So let's go over the specs. We got a sapphire crystal, the Seiko NH35 automatic movement, a diameter of 42 millimeters, not including the guards, a thickness of 13.5 millimeters, lug width 20 millimeters, lug-to-lug distance 48.5 millimeters, 200 meters of water resistance, and a titanium case. Not the crown or the bracelet, but the case. And finally, let's wrap up by going over the pros and cons. For pros, you get the NH35 movement, a sapphire crystal, there's a good amount of legibility, you get 200 meters of water resistance, and an homage to the watch 007 wore, if that's what you're looking for. For cons, glare on that sapphire. The bezel, it has that weird noise to it. The bracelet I didn't like for numerous reasons, and I found it had poor lume. So this is the part of the video where I normally would give you my personal thoughts on the watch, but you know how I feel. This watch simply did not check the boxes for me personally, but that's me. Maybe the things that bothered me are not an issue for you, and perhaps you're looking for a 007 homage watch, and you like the fact that it's titanium. Only you can decide what is right for you. Okay, my friends, that is it. Until the next time, remember, buy whatever it is that you love. This is your watch collection after all. I'll see you in the next video.